So into this video, we're gonna be talking about the Fuji X100 Mark VI, but this one is not gonna be your average review because I am going to be saying a couple of things that favor the Mark V. And to be honest with you, after watching a lot of videos about the Mark VI, it seems that a lot of those YouTubers, are saying way too many things that are not, first of all, truth, because I got to shoot with a camera, and they're saying way too many nice things, making this camera look way superior than the Mark V, when in reality is a little bit better than the Mark V. So let's talk about some of the things or some of the facts. And again, this video is gonna be a single straight shot because my definitive review is going to be upcoming once I put more time with this camera. But I wanna share my first finding with the Mark VI and suggest that for a lot of you guys may consider the Mark V. So here we go. Let's talk about what's different in the camera first. What is gonna be different is gonna be the 40 megapixel sensor from the Mark VI versus the 24 megapixel sensor from the Mark V. So almost double the resolution. The processor is also going to be the new X-Trans 5, which this one uses the X-Trans 4, a little bit slower. But again, the Mark V is still a great camera. Next thing that we're gonna have here, autofocus with subject detection, face detection, the whole 9 yards, It's a Sony level? No, it's not. But I've never had a problem with this camera actually not acquiring focus when I needed to acquire focus. Again, I've been shooting with this camera with a Mark V for about 4 years now. I took it to many, many countries, and it is a camera that's still a pleasure to use today. I can pick up any of this camera for photography and be extremely happy. Now, the next thing that's gonna be different in the Mark VI is going to be all the video specs. This camera has now 6K video, 6.2, up to 30p in 10-bit 422 and 420. Now the 6K is gonna have a massive crop, and then we have 4K video with a slight crop up to 60p in 10-bit 422 and 420. So yes, when it comes to video spec, the Mark V, has 4K 30 up to 8-bit. Now the quality of the 8-bit, and I've made a video that you can check somewhere in here, it's actually really good. I've shot video with this camera, no problem. The only difference is that this one was limited to a couple of minutes, where now with the Mark VI, you can shoot up to 45 minutes in 4K 10-bit 422. So yes, when it comes to video, you are gonna get more range with this camera. Also now we have IBIS, and it's going to be useful for a couple of scenarios. When it comes to photography, it's gonna allow you to dial lower shutter speed and still get a steady shot. Just gonna be great for lower light photography if you're planning to take this camera, for example, for a trip and shoot at night. This camera is gonna allow you to do that now with the IBIS. Now, when it comes to video, it's where the IBIS, yes, it's gonna be an improvement, but it's not gonna be an IBIS that's gonna maybe be on par with some of the Panasonic cameras or even some of the latest Sony cameras. Walking with this camera still produces shaky video. It is something that, yes, it is good for like steady hand holding type of shots, but it's not gonna be something for dynamic shooting, at least in the test that I was doing so far with the camera. But again, it is good that we have some IBIS in the Mark VI, and for some people, that is going to be enough. Now, a lot of people were hoping that this camera was going to be the perfect hybrid shooting camera, and for some users, this may be the perfect hybrid shooting camera. But for people like myself, I'm a little bit more demanding when it comes to my photography and video. This camera is not cutting it for me. It is something that now that with some of the latest Sony cameras, like for example, the Sony a7C Mark II, we do have a better IBIS, and it's also full frame, and it's a much more capable camera if we're talking about a hybrid shooting camera, great for photography, 33 megapixel sensor, full frame, and I can also use different lenses, not constrained to a 35 equivalent all the time. So I think that those are the main things of novelty about this camera. The resolution, the IBIS, the autofocus with subject detection. If you need to track trains, planes, birds, and insects, well, this camera is gonna have it. I don't have that need, and this camera to me did a pretty good job. Now we need to talk about the things that they haven't changed and they should have changed, and the reason why the Mark V may be a better option for a lot of people. So this camera, the Mark V, had a huge issue in my opinion, and it was the battery life. And the battery life of the Mark VI is as bad, if not worse, than the Mark V, because it still uses the same little battery that you see right here. And today I was shooting with my family, and I think that I shot probably nonstop a quarter of my day. And we're talking about maybe full-time shooting, maybe 30 minutes of shooting. Kind of like the same situation with this camera. Something that I can say about my Leicas, which it runs me the whole day, or my Sony cameras, which runs me the whole day. Battery life in this camera, you know, should have been updated, and it's not, and it is bad still or worse. Now, another thing that they haven't updated is this 2.5 mic jack, right? So what's going on with that little mic jack right there that we have in the Mark V, and now we still have it in the Mark VI? There's no microphone that was released in the couple of years, or at least that I know, that still uses the 2.5. Most microphones are gonna have the 3.5 millimeter jack. So I don't know why Fuji hasn't updated that. The other thing that it still remains the same, and I think that this is the first camera that I hear that was released in 2024 or in the past year that uses SD card UHS 1, the first version. I mean, most camera manufacturers by now, they have updated to the UHS 2, which is faster to write and faster to read. So I don't know if Fuji maybe had a lot of parts laying around from the Mark V, and they just want to reuse this part, and they were like, no, we're not gonna buy new SD card readers, you know, modern. We're gonna use what we have. And that may be one of the reasons why they stopped production, because this camera right now is made in China, whereas the Mark V is made in Japan, where Fuji is actually from. So nothing wrong with a product made in China, made good quality. You know, our iPhones are amazing and they are made in China. You know, I'm assuming that production costs are less right now, and this camera is $200 more, $1,600 versus the $1,400 that when this camera was released. The other reason why the Mark V may be a better option for you guys is because now the Mark V is available everywhere. People are offloading the Mark V. I'm not selling mine, by the way. Whereas the Mark VI is sold out everywhere, and I read an article that it's gonna be really hard to get Mark VI, you know, for a long time. This product, you know, very successful. And with good reasons, right? People couldn't get a hold of this camera, and everyone jumped to pre-order the newer version that was promising a lot. Now, another reason or another thing that I think they should have updated was the screen, and nothing wrong with the tilt screen, because for photography, that is all you need. But a lot of the times, you know, if you shoot portrait, which I do a lot, I wish they would have given me a screen that also tilt in this direction, and even better, flip out. Because with that functionality, I could actually rely more for portrait photography, like that portrait mode, and also for shooting solo. You know, if they could have given us something to shoot solo, now that we have that 4K video capability, you know, 4K 10-bit 422, 35 is not a bad focal length for shooting solo. You're gonna have to adapt the microphone though. You know, I think it cripples this camera in that sense, because now you're gonna have to have HDMI adapter, use a monitor, and so on. And the HDMI adapter is also the little one. So I think that Fuji could have had a good opportunity to turn this camera into something else than, you know, a great pocketable camera. You can film up to 45 minutes now. So that could have been, you know, more bang for the buck, in my opinion. One of the things that I can tell you is that if you don't own any of these two cameras and you are planning to get a camera mostly for, you know, printing some 4x6 photos or for social media and things like that, the Mark V is ready to be bought right now, and right now people are offloading it. I saw one yesterday for $850 on eBay, even with some accessories. People are gonna start throwing this camera, you know, on eBay. It was sold right away because I tried to check it again, it wasn't. But you know, you can still get this camera probably in some auctions that are going on right now that start at $200. You know, there are a bunch, and you can get some ones with a buy now option for $1,100, $1,200, which I think is still a fair price to pay for this camera. But if you have patience, participate in some of those bids, because there are tons of them right now. So again, the Fuji X100 Mark VI is going to be a very popular camera with good reasons. We do have, you know, some vast improvements. Now, would I call this camera, you know, a game changer versus the Mark V? The answer is going to be no. And like I mentioned before, for a lot of people, this is all you need. The Mark V, a camera that you can get today, pre-owned most likely, and this camera, we're gonna be in the same situation, having to wait. So guys, wait for my definitive review. That one is gonna be coming up very soon. Just wanted to share my thoughts. We'd love to hear your comments, and until then, I'll see you in the next video.